That's right, a Super Nintendo. I finally got one after so many years. Now, just to put it in perspective, with the Super Nintendo, I'd grown up in my video game life. I started off with a Sega Master System. I had that since I was about maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7. You know, quite late in the video game kind of landscape. And then I think when I was 10 years old, I got a Sony PlayStation. And then after that, I got a Sega Dreamcast. I missed out on a lot of the Nintendo stuff growing up. I did have a Wii, but I didn't really play. It was more like my parents' kind of Wii Fit machine. So I didn't really play the Wii at all. I've grown to really appreciate the Wii as an adult now. Like, I've got a nice collection here, and I fucking love the console now. But Nintendo haven't really been a massive thing in my life. I mean, don't get me wrong, I went around to friends' houses that had the Super Nintendo, that had the NES, that had the N64. So I have had some kind of acknowledgement of it and played it growing up, but I never owned one, never had the games, never got to choose the games off the shelf or anything like that. So to get one now is pretty awesome. Fairly new to the library as well. Like, I know the usual kind of, you know, Super Nintendo, kind of big Nintendo titles, the Super Mario World, Super Metroid, Donkey Kong Country, the big ones. There's some really kind of like interesting titles that I didn't know were on the Super Nintendo that I really wanted to check out, basically. This is the console. I picked it up. It's in fucking really good condition, actually. Really good. It's not yellowed too badly. It still retains that kind of grey colour, which I really like. If you're an American watching this, you know the UK had a different model than you guys over in the States. We got this more kind of Super Famicom design, the classic Japanese design, which is more sleeker, more rounded, whereas your design is more angular, more you know, sharp lines in design. I really like this one, but I do quite got a soft spot for the American design as well. But yeah, this is the obviously the UK version. So when it concerns games, the main thing that really tipped me off to want to get a Super Nintendo for the first time ever was this port of this classic 90s shooter, Doom. This is the game that made me want to pick up a Super Nintendo. Sure, I could have emulated this just to get the idea of what this port was like, but in my brain I was like, I love Doom so much, one of my favourite games of all time, one of the most pick up and play games ever. You can pick it up now and still play it and fucking have an awesome time. I wanted to try this out on the original hardware. And I can't say this is a good version of Doom, right? It's not a good version of Doom at all. But it's an amazing marvel in technology that this actually still works. It runs on the Super Nintendo. It's a technical marvel if you think of it from that perspective. Sure, does it run at like sub 10 frames a second? Yes. Can you see the enemies from a distance? Not at all. It's very much like we've got to take it for what it is to try and, you know, squeeze enjoyment out of it. So yeah, trying to play this was an eye-opening thing. The idea I'm playing Doom on a Super Nintendo, it was everything that I kind of wanted. In that, you know, even though it's a bad way to play Doom, in all honesty, especially in 2024, I still had a smile on my face because it's just an amazing piece of technical wizardry that this even runs on the Super Nintendo. So yeah, this was the game that ushered in me picking up a Super Nintendo. Am I going to go mad and collect for it like I would these other machines behind me? Probably not. It's more going to be more of a novelty thing for me to just like dabble in like little games that I may have missed out on growing up. But the Doom port, wow, it goes understated. I think that I can't recommend playing this as you would just normally play Doom, because obviously there's way better ways of playing Doom now. But as just a curiosity of the time, it is quite a marvel in my opinion. That's Doom. So I've picked up obviously other big names as well. It's not super big names, but I picked up the Super Nintendo version of Mortal Kombat 2. Loved Mortal Kombat back in the day. I was introduced to Mortal Kombat through Mortal Kombat Trilogy on a PlayStation. I think I did play Mortal Kombat 1 on the the Mega Drive back in the day as well at some point. But my true introduction to Mortal Kombat was the Mortal Kombat Trilogy game on PS1. So I thought I'd go and have a look at what Mortal Kombat 2 was on the Super Nintendo. Now, I heard that the port for Mortal Kombat 1 isn't very good for the Super Nintendo, so I wanted to have a better experience with a more competent port. And I read and I saw in a lot of places that Mortal Kombat 2 for the Super Nintendo is the better version, the better game to get, and it is probably better than the Mega Drive version as well. So I thought I'd get this one. It's your standard Mortal Kombat. It plays pretty well. It's rock hard as always. One of the harder Mortal Kombat games in my opinion. Got my ass absolutely handed to me, even on easy mode, right? I put it down to easy. I'm not a good fighting game player, so I got my ass kicked playing this one. But yeah, cool little addition to the collection, Mortal Kombat 2 for the Super Nintendo. Next up is that I had loads of nostalgia for this title, but the Master System version. Got loads of nostalgia. So when I found out they put this out on the Super Nintendo and it's a completely different game to that Master System version, I had to pick this one up just for, you know, curiosity's sake. And that is the Super Nintendo version of Jurassic Park. I've not played this yet, but I've heard that it's an interesting mix of, you know, top-down kind of roaming adventure game where you're shooting, you know, you're zapping dinosaurs and you're trying to find things. And then you go into buildings and it turns into like a first-person shooter, kind of ambient, more primitive first-person shooter. So I'm definitely up for giving this one a go. Looking forward to checking this out. I've heard it's pretty good. There's loads of big fans for it as well, apparently. So that is Jurassic Park. Now, next up, this game, back in the day, there was this videotape, this video magazine in the UK called Game Breaker. I think they've only ever done one issue, because I can imagine putting a kind of more video-focused magazine style on a VHS probably cost them loads of money, and they probably didn't sell very well, and they didn't really make their money back, hence why we never saw an issue 2, for example. But it was a video magazine. It was almost like YouTube style things way before YouTube even existed, but it was on videotape, right? It's called Game Breaker, and it was going through some of the newer releases of games coming out, and one game on here was exclusively for the Super Nintendo. And at the time, I thought it looked great. It was a platforming game. You change into different costumes and you play as Mickey Mouse. So I've picked up a game called Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse. Yeah, this game just looked fantastic. The soundtrack is awesome. The sprite art looked amazing in that video that I remember watching back in the day, like 30 years ago. And yeah, it translates over as in a game. It's actually really fun. Really enjoyed this one. It's by Capcom as well. When Capcom were kings of the Disney, you know, license game. Yeah, definitely recommend this one if you haven't played this before. Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse. It's a really cool game where you are distilled with these powers where you can change into different costumes that give you new abilities to overcome certain aspects of, you know, the game's challenge. Really clever concept. Capcom, one of my favourite developers of all time, so it goes without saying that this one is top quality for a game. That is Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse. Next up on the agenda for my Super Nintendo pickups, this one is just a game that I've always been intrigued by. I have played the later games back in the day on PC, the more kind of like, more advantageous games, the more advanced games. But to see this on the Super Nintendo looked quite fun, looked quite simple, fun, chill, and that is SimCity. This game looks just, like I said, like chill, like almost like a Zen game for me. I've not played it yet, but obviously it's going to be more primitive compared to your usual SimCity fare, like SimCity 4 on the PC, for example. Probably absolutely just destroys this in terms of what you can do in it. But for a game that just came out on the Super Nintendo, this one might be a little bit of a kind of like more of a kind of relaxing title for me, and it looks quite decent from what I've seen of it. Yeah, that's SimCity. Next up is a racing game that I've never heard of. I think it goes by a different name in America, but I'm not too sure what it was. It's called Exhaust Heat. This is a F1 style racing game. It's like a top-down racing game, from what I could tell by video footage. It looks quite deep for a racing game. It looks like it teeters towards that simulation style where you can go and you can tweak your car, change tyres, change your drivetrain, that kind of stuff. It seems like it could be quite a deep title for the Super Nintendo, but it was super cheap, and I thought, I'm going to pick this one up because it might be an interesting oddity on the Super Nintendo, and I do like my racing games, so this might be a good one to check out. That's Exhaust Heat. This next one is a big one for me. I love the Sega Master System port of this. It might be my favourite port when you compare it to the Mega Drive version. I feel like there's something about that Master System version that I absolutely adore. That game is called Alien 3. Now, the reason I picked up Alien 3 is because obviously I've got nostalgia for that Master System port, and I've heard that the Alien 3 for Super Nintendo is different enough that it almost can feel like a new experience if you've played that Master System or the Mega Drive port, for example. So I'm looking forward to giving this a go. I've heard it's a bit more challenging than the Mega Drive or Master System versions, so I'm looking forward to giving this one a go. It looks amazing on footage that I've seen. Sprite art looks awesome. And the general level layout looks cool, where you can just like pretty much free roam a level and complete objectives. It just sounds cool to me. It's a bit different than what I remember from the Master System versions. That's Alien 3. The final game in this Super Nintendo kind of haul, this pickup haul for me, is Super Star Wars. Now, I've never played this game before. I have now because I played it since getting this game, obviously. This game came with the console, so I got a bundle with the Super Nintendo and then Super Star Wars. Really surprised by this game because I've heard kind of mixed opinions on this one. Some people say it is really bad because it kind of focuses on difficulty over actual enjoyment. But I was really surprised by this one. Sure, it's got some difficulty spikes that are quite hard to overcome sometimes, but I had a blast with this. I had I played it for about 2 hours, and most of that 2 hours while I was stuck on like one level where you've got to like climb up on a sand thing. Well, the Jawa's fucking sand tank, whatever it's called. You got to jump and you got to get to the top, and then you got to enter inside it. The whole platforming is like pixel perfect. If you mess up a jump and you fall, you've got to find where you start and you've got to jump, do the whole journey again. The platforming is rock hard in this. It's pixel perfect, and the combat is relentless. Enemies will actually just batter you with attacks as well. So it can be really brutal, but something about the hardcore nature of this one, the old school difficulty of it, I had a blast with it. I thought it was fantastic. This game is definitely one of the highlights for me on the Super Nintendo out of the games I've picked up at the moment. That's Super Star Wars. So that's it, guys. That is the Super Nintendo and my first introduction to it as an actual person that's never had one in their life. So really excited to see what other games I can get for this console. I have picked up a multi-cart as well. I haven't got it yet, but it has all the expensive games on there that I don't have to buy because I'm not spending stupid money on these games. I'm really not. Especially cart only, not doing it, guys. But yeah, I got it's like 70 games in one. And it's got like, the Castlevanias, it's got all the Donkey Kongs, it's got all the games you would actually want to have for the Super Nintendo. It was super cheap. I was like, I'll give it a shot. If I can play like Super Castlevania 4 for nothing, why not give it a go? But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the Super Nintendo. Did you grow up with it? Did you skip out on it like I did as a kid? Do you have any favourite games on this machine that you would recommend I pick up or at least play? Let me know. But that is a Super Nintendo. And one final question, guys. Have you played the Doom port? The game that basically single-handedly made me pick up this machine. Yeah, like I said, I actually can't believe it's on the Super Nintendo. I love this game. I love Doom. And this game is a technical marvel, like I said. It's crazy that it runs on there. It runs about 10 frames a second, but is it playable? I think it is, if you know what you get into. If you know that it's going to be kind of a hard sell. But yeah, let me know what you think about Doom on the Super Nintendo. As always, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, let's continue to build a Super Nintendo collection. I probably won't go mad with the collection, but there's definitely games that I'm thinking about picking up for the system. But as always, guys, I'll see you later.